I remember being in a conversation with a few people and hearing how they're triathletes, and my mindset was I would never be able to do something like that. I remember the first time that voice in my head saying, oh, you can do that. Like, there's no way you could ever do that. I remember hearing that voice, and then I kind of questioned it, like, why not? Like, why not me type of thing. You know, I went through so many lows. I remember just a turning point of saying, I have to do something different. I want to do something different. And I felt like giving up, but I just knew it wasn't the way. You know, having kids, I was kind of fixated on all the things I love to do in my life. And when you have kids, that changes. And I knew it would. It's just sometimes, it's more of a wake-up call for me than it was for my wife. It puts a different perspective on life, and I had to find a lot more of a balance. My daughter's up early in the morning. Like, I have to get up earlier than her to train. So I have to fit my schedule in and around, like, the family. As a dad, I want to be there. I didn't want to be that, have kids and just, keep doing the thing I want to do. It's just about simply finding that balance. Basically 80K, 50-mile race, and you're halfway through, and you're just like, body's done, and you're like, I'm ready to give up. The second back half is the hardest part of the race, and you have to dig like so deep to keep going, right? And I think that's what I love. The bigger thing is that growth you get along the race. I mean, you learn so much about yourself, and it's hurt. Like, I've been on the ground with like all like legs in the air, like just like pulsating. People running by, you okay? I'm like, I'm good, give me 5 minutes. I'm laying there and I pull myself up, and you're literally like baby steps trying to go. It's in those moments that, you dig deep and you just find ways to pull through. And if, when your back is up against the wall, what are you going to do? Are you going to give up? You're going to keep going. It's like when I think of my daughter or my son or my wife being at that finish line, they're my why, they're my everything. It's like, I know I'm going to finish because of them. It doesn't matter if I'm crawling across that finish line on my hands and knees, like, I'm going to finish that race. With the passing of my dad, that was kind of a real turning point in my life. It was everything. He was diagnosed with lung cancer end of September of 2013, and then he passed away 3.5 weeks later, and it was really, really fast. I worked with him since I was 7 years old, and when I lost him, it was like losing a best friend, it was losing a business partner, it was losing a dad. He was my inspiration. And I remember when I think I was about 12 years old, I wrote him a letter saying how he was my hero. Like, some people, like, kids pick hockey stars and some kids pick, like, movie stars, but like, he was my hero. He was that everyday guy that just went out and worked hard for your family. He did everything for his family. Seeing him in the emergency room, and like, you want to sit there and be able to do something for him, but when the surgeon comes out and says, your dad's a sick man and he's not going to make it to chemo, and we can put him on a ventilator and have a machine breathe for him, you never think like that you're going to have to sit with your family and make that decision of, do you want to keep him on a ventilator or do you want to let him go? And all I can remember from the very end, that my dad's integrity was like intact. Like, from the very end, he was still saying thank you to people. Like, he was like, thank you. And in my head, I'm like, you're dying. Like, you're taking your last few breaths and you're still saying thank you. Every morning we go to work, he'd stop and get his coffee, 7-Eleven on Hastings in Burnaby, and like every time, but I'd be sitting in the vehicle and he would walk in. And it'd be like 45 minutes later. We're like, he wanted to get a coffee, like, I'm serious. And he'd come out. And I remember him coming out one time, and there's this guy that who walked in with, and the guy looked like he was a little bit, down on himself and things like that. And my dad went in, 45 minutes later he came out, and I said, like, who was that guy, Dad? And he's like, I don't know who he was. And I'm like, he's like, all I know is that when he walked in, he had a frown on his face, and when he left, he had a smile. And he had this way of being able to just, like, help people. He had this way of having people open up and feel comfortable. Not to be ashamed of the things they're going through in their life. And he would just listen, and that's all he would do. It is those things, like, about my dad that I want to pass on. And I mean, I can go on talking about that guy forever, right? But yeah, he was an amazing man. And I remember being in that room as a family, and when they took the oxygen off, and they're like, he's gonna take one more breath and that'll be it. And it was the toughest thing. It took 2 years for me to realize that it was the hardest thing I went through, but it was the greatest gift I was ever given. And when I tell people that, I almost feel like guilty, but it was like, I could hear him just saying like, go live your dreams, because like he always said that. When I want to give up on something, when I feel like it'd just be easier to like, give in and walk away, and I'll go do something else, or do something that, I know, there's this like, I can't go back anymore. It's like there's this block, like even though I want to turn around, it's not happening. Like I just couldn't do it. 18 months later, my daughter was born on that same floor around the corner and down the hall. And that same elevator that we left going down, like as a family crying when my dad passed away, was the same elevator we went down taking our daughter home. And to me, like, I think I looked at my wife and we came home, we were in tears, like that circle of life, you realize like, how painful it was and how much we both really struggle with losing them. And then like we have the joys of having our daughter there. Because I was like, I can imagine her coming to me one day and saying like, Dad, like, this is what I really love to do. This is my dreams, but I can't do it. In order for me to be able to tell her to go after her dreams, I'd have to say, hey, listen, like, Dad had that fear once too. Dad was scared before too, but, he bit the bullet and he went out and he did it. That's, I think, the biggest thing. I mean, that was that kind of real turning point in my life. Biggest thing is everybody that I lost that I really, really loved and was really, really close to, I feel every race I've gone into that they've been there. They come in at that point where I'm just maybe struggling a little bit, where I need that little bit of that push. I know that I'm doing something, beyond myself. It's not really about me. It's kind of teaching my kids to go out and do what they love to do.